we were just about to head back to the tent and start the walk back, and we heard explosions. And then we heard more explosions, and that was my first experience to getting mortared. I saw them in the distance, and they were just dropping them in. It was like boom, boom,
Whoa.
boom. It didn't click until that point, that what's the expression? We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
That was my first dose of reality.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Digital Social Hour. I'm your host, Sean Kelly, with a great guest today, Jeff Peddar. How's it going?
Good, man. Thank you for having me.
First podcast, man.
My first podcast.
Breaking your podcast virginity.
Yeah.
I'd love, since people don't know who you are probably, I'd love for you to kind of explain what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about my background. Born in Atlanta, Georgia. Ended up having broken household. Initially, my parents got divorced, and my mom moved us up to Massachusetts, and I've been there ever since. We lived with my grandparents growing up. Did the whole school thing there, and went through my kind of rebellious childhood phase and figuring out life with separated parents and all the stigma and challenges that come with that, and jumped into figuring out how do I find myself and my confidence within this background, within trying to prove, and being played back and forth between my parents over, figuring out my identity, who I wanted to be. And I realized, around 17, I didn't want to live home again. So joined the Marines, crash course in confidence and life experience. And my recruiter told me that they encourage you to go to college, and that this was at the beginning of the war. So I graduated school in 2003, and I signed up for the military September 2002. So kind of at the beginning of the Iraq war, and did all my training. Ended up, I applied to one school. I got into UMass, the business program there. And while I was going to school, after I had done my first, boot camp combat training in my specialty school, I then went to school for a semester and then got activated to go to Iraq in 2004, and did a tour there, came back, went to school, started a business, and ended up having to go back to Iraq again. I had 12 days left on my contract. I got involuntarily extended for 400 days and went back again in 2009.
You didn't want to go back the second time?
I did not want to go back the second. I didn't want to go the first time. To be honest, I thought I was going to school. I wasn't against going. I just, 19 years old, you're not really prepared to deal with that type of reality. You know, from an overprotective household with limited life experience, you grow up in a bubble, like everyone.
Yeah. So what was that like in Iraq?
I would say, the first dose of reality, I remember we left like August 14th, 2004. And we got into Kuwait. We got into Kuwait at 1 a.m, and it was over 100 degrees, and that was my first time being in a desert like that, in that environment. The next day we flew, I was stationed at Al-Assad Air Base in western Iraq in the Al-Anbar province. And we got into Iraq, and we lived in a tent city. And while we were transitioning, we lived in tents for a couple weeks while we transitioned to replace the unit that we were taking over. So, the first day I remember I walked to the chow hall. You have to have your flak jacket and Kevlar. So if you want to eat, breakfast, this is before they had any kind of transportation system set up. So, back then it was kind of like the Wild West. This was one of Saddam's main air bases that was just taken over. And I remember I had to walk to breakfast, just like, Grandpa's telling those stories. Back in my day, I had to walk 5 miles, back and forth. So I had to walk to the chow hall. It was a couple miles, and you had to wear your flak jacket, your Kevlar helmet, your ammunition, and your rifle and all your gear, and long sleeve clothing. So, hot as it was over 100 degrees.
Jeez.
And I walked to the chow. I went with a friend, and we finished breakfast, and we walked outside. And we were just about to head back to the tent and start the walk back, and we heard explosions. And then we heard more explosions, and that was my first experience to getting mortared. I saw them in the distance, and they were just dropping them in. It was like boom, 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 coming towards us. And I'm sitting there standing, growing up in Newton, Massachusetts, with no experience. I'm thinking fireworks.
Yeah.
You're just watching this, and some gunnery sergeant comes and grabs us and makes us take cover. Because he's like,
you didn't get into business to run payroll, did you? That's okay. I didn't either. Now there's Gusto. Gusto not only offers payroll, but also benefits, onboarding, and HR all in one place to more than 300,000 businesses. Maybe you want federal, state, and local payroll taxes to be filed automatically no matter where your employers work, or maybe you want to offer a 401k plan to help your employees save for retirement. Do you have compliance with regulations? 3 out of 4 employers say Gusto makes it easier to be compliant with the government. With Gusto's simple, guided software and user-friendly interface, payroll and HR are no longer exhausting, they are rewarding. Gusto was built for small businesses from the start. Gusto takes the pain out of payroll benefits and HR and puts the joy back into running your business. Gusto also integrates with your favorite tools like QuickBooks, Xero, Google, and more. Want all this and more with no hidden fees? Try it out for 3 months for free at gusto.com/social. That's gusto.com/social.
we're getting hit, and it didn't click until that point. That what's the expression? We're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That was my first dose of reality to being in a combat environment. Where you're 19, you don't have control of your environment. I was a junior Marine, so I had every detail you could think of.
Yeah.
You just get assigned to jobs, and you have to experience a lot of harsh realities at a very young age, which is hard to process.
Yeah, that's terrifying, man. And you mentioned you grew up in a single family. My parents got divorced too. What's your advice for kids dealing with, separated parents and kind of isolated and feeling lonely?
I would say what your parents are going through has nothing to do with you. I think like chess. Everyone's playing their own game in life. So both parents are trying to navigate life as best they can, and they have good intentions, but sometimes they play the kids, against the other parent. They use the pieces that they have to work with.
Right.
And I don't think there's malicious intent. It just sometimes, the kids are collateral damage. So the key is not losing yourself in your parents' drama and realizing you have nothing to prove to anybody else other than yourself.
Yeah. You also mentioned you built confidence through the Marines, but before that you weren't as confident.
I wasn't confident because I didn't, I never had a steady, since my dad lived in Georgia and my mom was in Massachusetts. She was a single mom working. We lived with my grandparents, but I didn't really have a steady male, role model on a day-to-day basis, or someone to kind of show me the ropes, or go play basketball with at nighttime, or, do things the way you do in a normal family. So I went through a rebellious stage. I was kind of, I didn't know this as a kid, but I had ADHD from a very young age. So
right.
I was hyperactive, and I always had to, go. So my outlet was pushing the red button. I would just kind of do things and see what happens. I got a fake ID when I was 15 that said I was 18.
Wow, that's early.
I got a tattoo on New Year's Eve when I was 15.
Wait, why'd you do 18 instead of 21 on the fake?
Because I wanted to get a tattoo.
Oh.
And it was like one of those international student identity cards,
Okay.
And the tattoo artist didn't think twice about it. They're just like, all right, if you're going to pay me cash, done.
Wow. Do you still have the tattoo?
Yeah, I could show you.
What is it?
It's a dragon with a sword.
Oh, dragon. People love the dragons. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
For 15?
So I got it redone a couple years ago. It was interesting because everyone asked, is there meaning behind it? And, funny story, I told my mom that it meant courage, luck, and strength, which I just made up on the spot because she was going to me. And she's like, all right, well, I guess if you need that, that's fine. And she was telling everyone for years after that that's why I did that. But
wow.
The reality was it looked cool. I wanted to stand out in a school. We're all trying to find our identity right now. Kids are doing it with social media, and trying to showcase who they are. Back then, it was how you dressed, how everyone had more of an opportunity to be an individual.
Right.
I feel than they do right now.
What are your thoughts overall on social media and kids using it and them being addicted to it and all this cyberbullying? Like, what do you think of that?
It's challenging because the confidence question you asked me a second ago with with how we find our confidence. I think kids are just more insecure nowadays than ever because they're seeking affirmation from people they don't know. They're looking for confidence and affirmation in all the wrong places. So they justify and validate who they are in this world based on what a bunch of strangers think and say about them. They haven't, like I said before, we grow up in a little bubble. So all we know is the limited exposure that we have.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time now mentoring a lot of teenagers, and I do executive coaching and work with CEOs and their families, because the struggle for the younger generation is real right now. The prospects of buying a house, of getting started in life, seems insurmountable for so many people.
Yeah.
How do you figure out how to move forward and get started in this world when it seems like the deck is so stacked against you? So this challenge with social media is we're exposed to this constant exceptionalism. Everyone showcasing all of the things that they have or that they don't even have. There's a lot of it is curated and fake. So everyone's putting out there to the world, this ideal world and showing edited photos of themselves and how perfect they are all the time. When the reality is on the inside, most of these people are miserable. They're struggling. They're trying to showcase it to try to justify to themselves that they're good enough instead of, building that confidence and saying, all right, I don't need you to affirm me in order for me to realize that where I'm at in life and what I'm doing and what I have to offer is good enough.
Yeah.
I think a lot of kids are really fixated on they need somebody else to tell them that it's okay, give them permission before they do something.
Yeah. So when you're mentoring teenagers, what's your approach? Are you trying to limit their time on social media?
So it's not about, I don't think that's possible. I think social media is so ingrained in this culture and society right now that the only way to limit it is to understand the purpose of why you're using it. I feel like kids are going to be too excluded if they cut themselves off of social media, then they're out of the loop. This is how everyone communicates now. The confidence thing about when I was growing up, if I wanted something, I had to have the balls to ask for it. So, I remember, as a teenager, I'd get dropped off at the mall, and if I thought a girl was cute, I'd have to have the confidence to go up and I would just go and talk to them and ask them out or see what works. And I might have gotten a lot of no's, but I got a lot of yeses eventually. And what I learned from is what worked and what didn't work. The confidence, anything we do, we're going to suck at to begin with because we have no experience with.
Yeah.
The trouble right now is kids are afraid to take that plunge. They're afraid to be vulnerable. They don't want to try something unless they're the exception, unless they're awesome at it. But how are you going to be awesome at something that you've never tried before?
Yeah. I like what you said about the confidence thing and the father figure. I never put those two together because I grew up without a father too. And I lacked confidence growing up my whole life, even though I was, super athletic, super smart. I never really connected the dots on that.
Well, I think sometimes when we're growing up, we're afraid. We're afraid of a lot of things, and having somebody, knowing there's backup, that someone's going to have your back and support you, and it's just always there. Like I knew my dad, was there, but he was in Atlanta, and it was a phone call away. It wasn't that physical structure. I didn't feel like let's say I got bullied in school or something happened. I didn't have that backup. I was on my own. And the challenge was I was kind of that individual where to fit in, I took every job. We didn't have much money, so we lived with my grandparents, but we were in an affluent town. So in order to fit in with the other kids, in order to have the stuff and the new outfits, I got one new outfit at the beginning of the year because that's what was financially reasonable for us. Right. But to have what the other kids had, I had to earn it. So I worked every job you could think of, from 12 years old up until college and onward.
Wow.
To build your financial independence. So I was trying to fit in, maybe similar to kids are doing now with social media.
Yeah.
I would work hard, I would buy the things that I want, and I realized that wasn't the path, and that wasn't the value that most of these people you don't even talk to anymore.
No, none of them. I tried to fit in too, so it's funny you said that. I think it's like a natural thing that you want to be part of a group almost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge struggle right now with mental health and with, especially kids because of the social media aspect, where they just constantly feel inadequate with who they are, with the hand they're dealt. So I did, after the Marines, when I got to school, I had to pay for my education, and I thought, what can I do that I'm going to make enough money to pay for school? I got a little bit from the GI Bill because I was in the reserves. And having deployed for a year, I got a little bit more from that. But what I learned from school is, think smarter, not harder.
Right.
So I'm like, what can I do to make enough money? And we didn't really have, social media was just starting. Like the Facebook, I think, just came out.
Yeah.
We didn't have the networking connections that the internet provides now. So I got into personal training. I went to a gym. I asked if I could work as a trainer. I had some experience because I worked at a gym in high school and I shadowed trainers. And I went to Iraq and I did all the military training and stuff.
Yeah.
So I started training and I got this job, and the guy said, yeah, you can start in a couple weeks. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to get certified. So I looked up a certification course, did a crash course I traveled to New Hampshire, did a course in a weekend and got my certification, came in, started training. And the deal was I had 1 month free and then I had to pay $500 a month afterwards. So I went out and I did that and I hustled. Within 2 months, it was the fake it till you make it type of thing.
Yeah.
Where I didn't really know what I was doing and I didn't have my shtick down. But the more I did it, the better I became. And within like a month or two, I was making $2,000 a week in cash.
Nice.
As a 20-year-old.
That's a lot back then too.
Oh, a lot back then. So this was in
20 years
2006.
Ago, right?
In spring of 2006, I started in fall of 05. And then I did that for the next 4 years while I was in school.
Nice.
So I worked full time. I did the Marines on the weekend. I volunteered on a board of directors for Big Brother Big Sister program.
Nice.
And tried to fit in a girlfriend and doing my academics.
Wow, you go all out, man. How were you able to balance leaving the Marines? Because a lot of people get PTSD and they struggle to get back into society.
Yeah, so that was a challenge. I have to say, I'm not someone who's fazed by blood and guts. And like, I'm the type of person, if there's a burning building and there's a way that I can help somebody and, in a realistic fashion, I'm going to run in. If there's a triage situation, I definitely don't, I don't panic. I learn, one of the big lessons, that I preach a lot and teach people is learning how to accept what you can't control and try to move forward in a positive way. When I was overseas and I had to deal with a lot of complicated situations that were hard for me to process because I didn't have the tools or outlets, especially at such a young age, guys back then, you don't want to say that you're struggling. I think the mantra for guys, we weren't allowed to say anything's a problem because then, in the guy code, in the guy, club, you're looked down on.
Right.
You're the problem.
Soft.
Yeah, you're soft. You're the problem. So it's not that. I've dealt with a lot of death, and unfortunately, a lot more. From suicide,
wow.
Which is a huge issue that I'll talk to you about in a minute. But I think coming home, it's that you're in this mode of focusing on what's right in front of you, on day-to-day survival, day-to-day functioning. I have to do my job. You can't really think of the bigger picture because you don't know what that's going to be. You don't know when you're going to come home. You don't have control over anything.
Right.
So accept what you can't control and try to move forward in a positive way. Prime example, my second deployment, I had 12 days left on my contract. I got involuntarily extended for 400 days.
Wow.
And in that process, I had, my life fell apart because my way of dealing with coming back from overseas, the first time was I kept myself so busy that I didn't have to feel anything. And fortunately I did it in a productive way. I worked out and I trained and I did all these things that really helped me, even though I was still struggling on the inside that no one saw, and I took that out on myself in private ways, maybe by gambling, by doing a lot of distracting and trying to fill a void, trying to make myself feel something or feel some type of purpose. Because I think what happens with a lot of PTSD is you become desensitized to a lot of life. You become desensitized to experiences and things that are otherwise not normal for other people.
Right.
And when you have all these experiences and in order to function, you have to let go of that and figure out a way, accept what you can't control, try to move forward in a positive way. So I took that mantra and I looked at this deployment. I could either do a job and be pissed off that this is going to happen. And I requested to not have to go because I had a business opportunity that was phenomenal that I put so much energy into and I had to walk away from. And I had to give up all my clients and, step out of my life. I mean, imagine just walking away from your life for a whole year.
Crazy.
And then you don't know what's going to happen after.
Scary.
So my attitude going into it was I'm going to do the best job I can, and because my life will be easier.
Yeah.
If life is going to happen either way, which path do you want to be on, the bumpy road or the smooth path? And in this situation, I looked at it as all right, I have to go either way. I have no control over this. I'm going to do the best possible job I can, given the context, because that's what I have control over.
Yeah.
You know, and the outcome was freedom, flexibility, and, you know, ease of access. Everything was easier because of how proficient and efficient I was at my job.
Oh, nice. So after your second tour, you came back. Did you distract yourself again, or what was the method of healing?
Unfortunately, so I got married before my second deployment, and that didn't end up working out. It was she was sick with Lyme disease at the time, and
oh man,
you know, before we got married, and I was more concerned. I proposed to her right before I left, and I was more concerned about you know, coming back than I was about. You know, worrying about being married or anything else. And I knew that if something happened to me, she'd get the benefits. Originally, we were going to go to Afghanistan, then it got switched to Iraq. And so, you know, life was just hitting me all at once. So my life fell apart, and then I was trying to piece it back together while still giving myself motivation and something to look forward to, something to come home to. So I came home, I was married, I was depressed for a bit. I sat on the couch. This is before online poker got banned, and I was depressed. I used to, you know, play online poker all day, every day, because I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do anything, you know, and it wasn't that it was so hard. It's just that the pace of how many people depend on you and the responsibility. You're going like 100 miles an hour, and then when you come back to regular life, it's not relatable. You're going 20 miles an hour. You know, so you have this huge, you know, adrenaline rush of these constant situations that you're in, and then it's a crash course back into. It's like in the Hurt Locker when he comes back, and all of a sudden he's looking in the cereal aisle, going, you know, what's this all about?
Yeah.
So coming back, you know, that was definitely a challenge. My outlet, I used to try to give myself pep talks to talk myself out of being depressed and struggling, and that doesn't work. I think depression is a chemical imbalance in your brain, and it's a temporary thing that we all experience at different times in our lives.
Yeah.
So my outlet was getting back into the gym, starting exercising, and, you know, fixing it by giving myself the dopamine and serotonin, you know, and the positive hormones that pull yourself out of it.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, because people really struggle with it, and they don't really teach you about it, right? When you're in training. No
one talks about it. It wasn't until many years later. You know, I unfortunately I've learned a lot of lessons. I'm 38 now, so, you know, going through that, I didn't necessarily treat relationships or treat people, you know, the way I always had good intentions, but I was disconnected. You know, I was stuck. You know, imagine just kind of hitting pause in your life because you're trying to process all of these complex things, everything you've been through. You know, we're all broken as kids, and we're trying to fix ourselves for, you know, the duration of our life. And then add in the military and deployments and, you know, working and being exhausted and run down and trying to please everyone, the chasing the pursuit of when I get here, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
You know, this endless pursuit that isn't real.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point, there's no amount of money, there's no amount of experiences that are ever going to bring happiness to you. You have to find that for yourself.
So would you say it took you a while to find that true happiness?
Yeah, very long time. I mean, now I've done, one of the reasons I'm coming here today is you know, my mission right now, the most fulfilling thing that fills my cup is helping other people in a really meaningful way. You know, kind of putting your money where your mouth is I think there's a huge disconnect, you know, for kids nowadays with confidence, with goal setting, with opportunities, with financial literacy. You know, they're wildly unprepared for the real world. You know, and the world is continuously changing, so they're just falling behind. Everything from, you know, dating, from the lack of, you know, young viable men to girls, from the, you know, the online dating thing is a nightmare for kids.
Right.
You know, I have 2 stepdaughters, and the challenge for them, you know, everyone, no one communicates. Everyone's so used to swiping left. You know, you give up on somebody before you've, you know, on looks alone, before you've even given them the opportunity to get to know their personality.
Right.
Most relationships we know that are happy are because they're best friends, because they get along well. Well, how do you determine that from a photo that you spend half a second on because you're so used to swiping, you know, through Instagram? Or, I mean, if you watch any young kid swipe on their social media thing,
they're like rapid fire.
Rapid fire. You're like, they pick up their phone. It's this subconscious reaction, and they flip through 20 things, you know, and put it down. I don't even think they know they looked at their phone.
No, it's like a habit.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. The attention span keeps getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems with it is really people stepping back, slowing down a little bit, and learning how to communicate with one another. Give things a shot, try things, setting goals for yourself. I think we're lacking a lot of motivation and direction in life right now.
I agree, man. It's scary. Between that, the public education system, and the news outlets, it's tough to know what to listen to, right?
Well, you're just bombarded with challenges and negativity and the highlight reel, and then you're on the other side. You're smashed with I'm not good enough, because I'm not the exception at every single thing. I mean, think about it. If you were a singer, what if you're just a decent singer and you love singing? Well, you should do that. Just because you're not, going to be on American Idol or have your own album doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue what you love doing.
Right.
I mean, I like sports. I'm not particularly, I've just gotten into pickleball.
Yeah.
It's fun, but other sports, I'm 6'5". You said you're 6'6". Everyone asks you, do you play basketball?
Every day.
I love basketball, but I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
Why can't I still just enjoy playing? Why do I have to be awesome just because I'm tall?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel bad for tall people that don't play sports because every day they get reminded, why don't you play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man.
But the one of the issues that comes with all this is that the mental health crisis that comes from the social media and not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, is this fear to try. We can't become good at anything unless we try it. So, one of the programs I work on, that I've designed is called Drive, and it's about, goal setting. And one of the acronyms for it is you want to decide what your goal is, decide what you want to do, where you want to be. Then you want to reflect on what has or hasn't worked for you in the past with it, right? You want to look at that goal and that objective and think about, the definition of crazy, trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So we want to look at what we've already done. Then we want to innovate and implement. So we want to come up with a strategy that we can then implement on a daily basis. Small habits on a regular basis turn into big results. So little things that we can implement on a daily basis that are going to give us the opportunity, to move in a new direction.
Right.
Take a road. We're always going to hit roadblocks in life, but sometimes it's just about stepping back and changing your perspective.
Yeah. So like the 1% a day philosophy almost.
Yeah. So small little things, and then visualize and execute.
Yeah.
Come up with things that are within your reach that you can do. Sometimes for most people, like kids who are stuck nowadays, it's about habits. Good habits compound on themselves. Bad habits compound on themselves.
Right.
So get up early, get started, start getting active. Whatever it is for you, stop comparing yourself to what everyone else is doing and focus on what are you capable of, right?
Right. That comparing stuff is deadly, man. Because I used to do that, and it took a toll on me mentally. Even though I was like successful in most people's eyes, the comparing, just something about it is detrimental to growth.
I have a young kid, that I mentor right now, and when I met him, he was 14. He couldn't do a single push-up, not a regular one. So I said, all right, we're gonna solve this. You and I, we're gonna do 300 push-ups a day, right, for 6 months until we get to 50,000.
Wow!
Because that was a goal that was so insurmountable, and unattainable at that point.
Yeah.
And the point of it was seeing that with perseverance and with follow through, comes the accomplishment, comes the outcome. Anything worthwhile that we value in life, we have to work really hard for it to get the value and reward. Anything that comes too easy for us, we don't value. You know, if you just win the lottery, you don't really get very excited about it. If someone just gives you what you want all the time, sure, you feel good in the moment, but it's very transient.
And you're going to lose it too, quick.
Of course. If you go to school, you have to work really hard in college, to get the degree.
Yeah.
I had to work hard in the Marines to graduate and become a Marine, to, go overseas. You have to go through the tough experiences. The best lessons in life are a challenge.
Yeah.
So, the goals of figuring out something that motivates and drives you. This kid, he worked really hard. He did them against a table initially, and then, a chair, and worked
the modified
worked his way
ones.
up. And then, within no time, he was doing, 10 to 20 per set with perfect form.
Wow.
And then he got up to doing, 30 sets of 30. So he would do 10 sets of 30 every single day. We gave about a 2-week window, off in that time period.
Wait, so it only took 2 weeks to get to that?
No, to do 50,000 took us 6 months.
Oh, okay. That's
So
still impressive,
six
man.
months, yeah. And I did it with him. It was, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this.
Oh, nice. So you lead by example.
Yeah, same. I during this a primary school was struggling for activities for kids, so I volunteered and worked for them doing strength and conditioning, with young kids, and just to give them an outlet and a challenge. And I had this one kid who came to me and he's like, I want to do 100,000 steps. That's my
In
my
a day?
goal. What's that?
In a day?
In a day, 100,000 steps. So I'm like, all right, that's about 50 miles.
Yeah.
So I said, let's do it. So I picked a day about a month away, and we started training for it. And the week before, I made him do 20 miles with me to make sure that he could do it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't able to run it, but we walked it.
Okay.
So it took us. I set up on a bike path 10 miles apart, 2 cars, and we were self-supported. I provided all the nutrition and the training leading up to it, and so we were safe and we had an outlet.
Nice.
And unfortunately, that day it was 42 degrees and pouring rain. So that
So you didn't do it?
Oh, of course we did it.
Oh, you did
Yeah,
it?
no. You can't pick the weather. I mean, it's like David
Wow.
Goggins.
Most people would have canceled.
Never. No, if I make my mind up, that was the window I had to do it. So, we're going to get it
Wow.
done. So, I remember he was struggling a lot by about mile 40.
Okay.
Almost kind of on the verge of tears because it was painful.
Was it raining the whole time?
The whole time. Yeah, it was pouring on us. Pouring and cold. But luckily, actually, we just changed our socks,
Okay.
every like 15 miles.
Got it.
Every 10 miles, we would, if we were soaked enough. So we would go back and forth and eat. It took us 15 hours. It got to a point where you couldn't run after a certain point because he wasn't really, we walked the whole thing. I think it would have been easier if we ran, but psychologically, that was such an insurmountable thing to run through.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know, 15 hours later and sore next day. That was my first ultra experience of trying something and going through that recovery and that mental mindset of telling yourself, just keep going.
So your mental strength is just on another level.
I've learned a huge tolerance for pain and discomfort. I believe, that life is never going to stop punching you in the face, no matter, what you do or where you go. We're all going to deal with challenges, and learning how, again, to accept what you can control. I mean, this year's been a hurdle out of lots of ups and downs. In the fall, last summer I came up with a friend. It's hard for me to talk people into doing challenging things, but I decided I wanted a challenge and something to work towards. So I'd never climbed a mountain before, so we planned for doing Mount Kilimanjaro, and I did that in October. And then again, with the people that I accomplished that with, we wanted another challenge. So next week we're going to go hike the Swiss Alps from Chamonix, France to Zermatt, Switzerland.
How high up is that one?
That's mostly in like I think like 7,000 to 11,000 range.
The
7 to 10.
oxygen is thin,
But
right?
It's like less so than
Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Kilimanjaro was 19,000 feet. And basically,
Jesus.
I was totally comfortable up until 15,000 feet.
And then you had trouble breathing.
You don't have trouble breathing. You have to go slow. You don't catch your breath as quick.
You feel weaker.
You feel weaker. You get out of breath quickly. So imagine just moving around in your tent, or going to go to the bathroom, or
Even that tires you out?
You just because you have to get out of your tent, you have to walk out.
Yeah.
When you're above 15,000 feet, you get fatigued much more easily than you would think.
Wow.
And there's no way to train for that around here.
Yeah.
I mean,
tough to
in
train
the
for
States,
that.
maybe on the West Coast, but where I live, not as much.
Yeah. So did you make it to the top?
Yeah, I made it to the top. There's no physically, I was overtrained for it, so it wasn't as bad physically. It was just more mentally to I had never really gone through an experience like that.
Yeah. It took a week, right?
7 days up, 2 days down.
my
We did the
gosh.
Western approach.
So you had to pack all your food?
So you bring all your gear. You have a lot of support. The porters that come through the organization, they cook your food and bring everything. You have to bring all your gear, and porters bring your main stuff, but you have a day pack.
Wow.
And your stuff, and you're hiking up. So 9 days without showering or baby wiping it. But I learned that in the Marines. I got used to that. I mean, we had a day they kept bombing our water supply.
Really?
So we had a couple months where we couldn't really shower. We had to use bottled water and baby wipes for almost 2 months.
That's crazy.
Or sometimes you get lucky and you get a cold water shower. But a lot of this accept what you can control and try your best to move forward type of mindset.
Yeah.
So one thing that happened this year is later in the year I had a German Shepherd that unfortunately out of nowhere passed away. He
Sorry to hear that.
suddenly had a seizure, and I feel like our dogs are like our closest companions.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like the most real relationship. I mean, nothing but love.
Yeah.
So just out of nowhere, I had a scare with him a year before where he had a jaw cancer, and I had to have part of his jaw removed, and he recovered from that. And then just out of nowhere, one Saturday morning, he started having a seizure, and then had 3 more, and I had to put him down, and no forewarning or anything. So that kind of rocked my world. And then again, a couple months later, just got thrown into this situation where I found out my ex-wife committed suicide. And
Whoa.
had to navigate, that, because that stirred up all these emotions of this whole period of my life. Just, I hadn't been a part of her life in 10 years, but, tough to process that, on the, it gave me a lot of insight into the finality of how short a period of time we have here.
Yeah.
And how sometimes, everyone, I've dealt with a lot of people recently who have been struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts or things that they've been going through. And, I've worked with a lot of young kids to bring them out of that and to the other side. And the challenge is you can't help someone when you don't know they need help. I mean, I wasn't a part of her life. And this is just another example of, something where, like, I lost a lot of Marine friends to suicide, whether it was alcohol, or a gun, or whatever path they chose. But you have to speak up. I mean, you can't solve a problem that you don't know exists.
Right.
And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the issue is we have become a society where we feel alone. We used to be a culture where we all worked as a tribe. We had 50 people as a team working together to achieve a common goal, and we've whittled it down to this isolating culture where people, look at you funny if you do anything.
Get judged no matter what you do these days.
I had an interesting interaction the other day. I was driving a convertible, and this kid was taking pictures of the car, and I said, "You want to ride?" And his eyes lit up. I was getting coffee in the morning, and I had 10 minutes to spare, and I was like, "Sure, I'll give you a ride." It was a Ferrari, and he had never been in one, and I took him for a spin. Within 2 minutes of being in the car, he's like, "You're not going to kidnap me, are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's my intent. I'm gonna kidnap you in a Ferrari convertible."
You used to be able to hitchhike everywhere, but now it is pretty dangerous.
So this is the challenge that I'm trying to solve and work on is, as a society, a lot of the issues we have are the fact that we are so isolated. We don't work together.
Right.
We have so much distrust towards people. I mean, think about, the issues that kids are worried about right now with global warming and climate change, and they're trying to tackle this. But the problem is our selfishness as a culture. We all consume. We all have to have, our own individual item of everything.
Yeah.
How many things do you have that you could easily share with other people, but you don't?
Right.
Even cars and vehicles. We're trying to solve an issue, but everyone's going to get electric vehicles. Great. That doesn't solve the problem. That contributes to the problem. Now we have an infrastructure issue. Now we have to pay, how are we going to power all these things? How are we going to solve, these different challenges that are going to come because everyone's going to have to wait to charge their car.
Yeah.
Or get fuel or whatever it is.
It's just a different problem. It's not fixing the actual problem. I see what you're saying.
Well, if we work together, if people are more open-minded, if they take chances, if they communicate, if they talk, if they share, when we put ourselves out there and we have more empathy towards other people, one thing that I realize, we're all going through a different version of the same story. We all feel the same things. We all care about the same things. We all want the same things. When I was in Iraq, I was working on an Iraqi army base in Baghdadi, which is another part of Western Iraq. And we were fortifying their base, and one of the Iraqi soldiers invited me for dinner. So I came in with a translator, and I sat on the ground with him, and I ate with him, and I was just having a normal conversation. And this kid, he used to work for Al Qaeda, which was the station. So I asked him, how did he switch? And he's like, well, Al Qaeda paid $400 a month. So he had to survive and get by. What other job could he take? Then when the Army came back together, a couple years later, he joined the Army because the Army paid $900 a month. And I'm like, well, did you want to do that? And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, I want to go to the club and I want to meet girls and I want to party. He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
So I think survival, we do what we have to do based on the opportunities that we have available. And a lot of people in these other countries don't have these opportunities. But in our country, we have so many opportunities.
Too many almost, right?
Yeah. Well, so that begs the question, what do you do when you have too many choices?
Yeah.
And that's part of this whole drive program is figuring out, narrowing down your choices so that you have some motivation and some goal that you want to achieve.
Love it. It's been a blast, man. What are you working on next, and where can people find you?
They can find me online. We're gonna just on my Instagram at Jeff Peddar, and right now I'm going to work on building a few programs to bring this out, to the world, and to help people and travel around and, work with school systems and kind of teach the kids the financial literacy and confidence and tools that I feel are missing and that I didn't have. Take the lessons learned. One thing I want to tell, viewers watching is, whatever you're feeling, you're not alone in whatever you're going through. We're all going through the same battle together. The key is stop being a passenger in your own car in life. Start driving your own car and start making choices. When you hit roadblocks, take a different perspective, step back and find another way around, because the key to success, just keep moving forward. Pick a direction and keep swimming. If you stay in the water, eventually you're going to drown. If you pick a direction, it's easy to divert and pick somewhere else, but you have to swim towards shore at some point. You have to drive your own life, because life will just take you along for the ride. It's never going to stop.
Powerful. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.